Chapter 1. Still leaving? Ye Wanwan opened her eyes. She was faced with a pair of eyes that sent chills down her spine and made her soul quiver. Ah! Her pale fingers tightly twisted the duvet. Again, she had to endure the pain of her body being torn apart. Could this be hell? Why is it that I'm obviously dead but had to come back here, next to this devil? Her mind was muddled due to this man's scorching temperature, and out of instinct she resisted. "Don't touch me!" With one fluid movement, it was as if she was touched by ice. His ghosty, bloodthirsty expression clouded, and his ice-cold lips bit down on her ruthlessly, as if wanting to swallow her whole Ye Wanwan was in such pain that she couldn't think straight. She muttered subconsciously, "Why? Why me? Siyeha, why must it be me? Because it has to be you?" Hearing his deep and hoarse voice was like a shackle of chains that imprisoned her soul. Upon hearing the same answer he'd given her in her previous life, Ye Wanwan fell into a coma. When she opened her eyes again, the darkness of the night sky had turned into daylight. A floral scent filled the air, and the warm glow of the sun fitered in, momentarily dissipating her uneasiness. Yet, in the next second, Ye Wanwan tensed up again. A strong sense of distress spread in her as the man awakened. His arm around her waist tightened. She was akin to a pillow, being held in his arms. "Still leaving?" Next to her ears whispered the voice that gave her the creeps. Out of her survival instincts, Ye Wanwan shook her head. She was unsure whether he believed her. He glanced at her for a moment and then looked down, giving her little kisses on her lips, chin, and neck. The heavy, hot breath buried in her neck gave her warning signs all over her body. She was like a deer who'd been bitten by a predator. She didn't dare move an inch. After what seemed like forever, he finally let her loose. In the next second, a surprisingly pleasant sight fell into Ye Wanwan's view. He left the bed half-naked, the backlight outlining his slender stature and tapered waist. It was only a while ago that he'd been as ferocious as a beast, but in this moment, his handsome face was cold without a trace of humanity. It wasn't until she heard the sound of the door shutting that Ye Wanwan allowed her nerves to relax. She could finally reflect on her current situation. She slowly glanced at the furnishings around her, and also at her own reflection in the vanity mirror opposite. The black lips of the gill in the mirror had been gnawed at till there was only a faint color left, and the makeup on her face had been completely smeared by tears and sweat. On her body, filled with bruises and hickeys, was a horrific and bloody tattoo. She couldn't believe this was how she looked at only 20 years old. At that time, in order to distance herself from Si Ye Han, she purposely made herself look ugly and disgusting. Now she'd actually been. Rebon. Suddenly, an overwhelming sense of fear and despair caused her to choke. Why? Why have I returned to 7 years in the past? I'd rather die than return here, back by this devil's side. She clearly remembered that this was where she and Si Ye Han first had sex, and she'd been tormented thoroughly for countless nights afterwards. She'd lost her lover, her family, even her dignity and freedom. She'd lost everything. Must I go through all of it again? No. Since God's given me a chance to live again, I have to change it all. And Chapter 2. He could tolerate it all. But how am I going to change? To Si Ye Han, crushing her was easier than crushing an ant. He got whatever he wanted. Ye Wanwan took a deep breath, forcing the fear of that man out of her. There must be a way. At least she was no longer the same stupid, mindless, and impulsive teenager. "Ouch, my God! Wanwan!" She heard a sudden exclamation. Hearing this familiar voice, Ye Wanwan stiffened and turned to look at the door. Immediately, she saw the face of a person she'd never forget. A pretty face that people would never suspect. It was her best friend from her previous life. "Wanwan, how could Mr. Sai do this to you?" Shen Mengqi rushed over and held her hand. She looked at the messy bed and Wanwan's bruised body in astonishment. Ye Wanwan lowered her eyes, looking at her hand clenched in pain from Shen Mengqi's tight grip. This time, she didn't miss Shen Mengqi's clumsily hidden feelings of jealousy. "Wanwan, are you all right? Are you okay? Wanwan, don't scare me." Shen Mengqi fretted anxiously. She saw that Wanwan's gaze was strange and wondered if she was traumatized. Ye Wanwan maintained her composure and drew her hands back. She shook her head and replied, "I'm fine." In her past life, the reason why she'd been tormented so relentlessly by Si Yehan was due in part to Shen Mengqi. She had many fights with Si Yehan and didn't dare tell anyone other than Shen Mengqi, her most trusted friend. Who would have known? Shen Mengqi actually had feelings for Si Yehan. She long coveted the title of Mrs. Si. On the surface, she was helping Wanwan, but she was actually using her to get closer to Si Yehan. She even tried to drive a wedge between them countless times and led Wanwan to be tortured by the wrath of Si Yehan each time Wanwan hadn't noticed her level of deception before. She even felt deeply grateful to Shen Mengqi for being her wing woman. Staring at her own reflection in the mirror, Ye Wanwan couldn't help but smile wryly. Actually, this hideous disguise was Shen Mengqi's idea, and she actually agreed no matter how others saw her, as young as Si Yehan iowathed her, it'd be worth it. But what she hadn't anticipated was that despite her revolting appearance, Si Yehan could tolerate all of it. "How are all right when you look like this?" "Wanwan, don't worry, I'll help you," Shen Mengqi said, with a look of kindness. Ye Wanwan sneered in her heart. "Oh, sure," and asking for Gu Yueze's help. In the end, Shen Mengqi betrayed her and told Si Yehan that she was eloping with Gu Yueze. This had intensified her conflict with Si Yehan. From that point onwards, Si Yehan's temperament became cranky and unpredictable. His possessiveness towards her became intolerable. Facing Si Yehan head-on was like courting death. Why had she been so foolishly stubborn before? She'd even listened to Shen Mengqi and obeyed her, hurting herself again and again. The Ye family hadn't exacted their revenge yet. Her parents were still waiting for her at home, and she still had to guide her older brother onto the right path. She had so much to do. She needed to pacify Si Yehan first. She couldn't do anything that would provoke him again. She set herself up against a terrifying enemy. "Wanwan, wait for me! I'll come back for you!" Shen Mengqi, only caring for herself, spoke words devoid of meaning. She then left. Once Shen Mengqi left, Ye Wanwan's helpless and fragile expression turned cold and numb. Shen Mengqi's countless attempts to encourage her to escape hadn't succeeded. The last time she was accused of having an affair, it was like Shen Mengqi was determined to the death to ruin her life. So let's find out. Who will die this time?